Assalamu alaikum and good greetings. So today I'll be watching a video by Abdullah Samir titled Leaving Islam After Promoting It for 15 Years. This video is quite old in the sense that it was published in 2016, but I'm watching it because some of you that actually commented on my previous videos suggesting different videos that I should watch, especially those criticizing Islam basically, right? Or pointing flaws in Islam, I assume. So this is one of the video that I think I will be watching it for this video for today, and let's watch.
Hello everyone. I wanted to share my story in some details. I was kind of hesitating to, make a video, but you know what? I thought maybe I should do that because few people thought maybe, maybe I'm not a real person. Some people thought there was some Jewish conspiracy going on, and all sorts of ideas out there. So I wanted to make a video to show that I'm a real person. I was born I was born into an Ismaili family. My dad is Ismaili, my mom was Sunni.
Oh, okay, interesting. So Ismailiyah, right? I'm not too familiar with how it differ from Islam, but anyway.
And I was raised as an Ismaili. And around the age of maybe 18 or so in high school, I found Islam. Some of my friends invited me to read the Quran, and I started reading it. I started praying, what was called namaz or salah. And I got really excited. I found the Quran, and I got really excited about it. I really liked it. And I said, hey, this is God's message to me.
Oh, so he became a Muslim at 18? If I understand correctly, right? He was originally Ismaili, and then at 18 he became a Muslim.
I didn't look into it too critically. I felt like, I looked into a little bit of other religions and stuff, and I felt it's just instinctive, and I felt like this is something, good, something I want to follow, God's message. And I started praying 5 times a day. And, eventually I took a deep dive into Islam. I started following it with all my heart and mind. Within like a few years after that, I started university, and then I got married, and then, what else? And then I started working. So when I was working, I tried my best to implement Islam. I would pray even at the office. I would find a stairwell. I would go and pray wherever I could, and I would get, if we had a prayer room, I would invite other people to come pray with me.
So where is this? Because the way he described it, it is at a place or in a country that Islam is not widely known, because he have to pray in a stairwell, something. Of course, when I was in France, we have to, or many people I know of do like that, right? Pray in somewhere secluded, right? So in the university that I did my doctorate, my PhD, it is something like that as well. Although for me it's not really that secluded. It's just that away from place where people are having activities, right? But it's place where people can still see clearly. But it's just that not to interrupt, people's activities. Yeah.
And even at university, in the middle of exams, I would stop to pray. I would ask them, can I please get up? I need to say my prayers for Maghrib especially. And yeah, I was following it to the best of my ability, to be honest. I sincerely believed in Islam. I used to give out some DVDs. I made some DVDs of my own with some Islamic videos. I used to go from mosque to mosque, videotaping lectures and at conferences, and I wanted to promote it because I felt truly in my heart this was the true religion. I wanted people to go to Jannah. I wanted Allah to be pleased with me, and I wanted to follow the Prophet. And so that's what I did. I created a website, lightuponlight.com, and eventually another one, versebyversequran.com, to promote Islam because I believed in it. And there's still a bunch of videos on there if you go and see of that I videotape myself, some of the lectures, and some of the other ones I got permission from others to put online. So that's what I was doing. And when I started working, I would avoid jobs that were involved with riba, anything to do with the bank. I wouldn't work for any banks whatsoever. I wouldn't work in the media industry like television or music. Personally, I would avoid listening to. I wouldn't listen to music. I wouldn't let my kids listen to music. I even put my kids in Islamic school, for as much as I could afford it, even though it was expensive here in Canada. But I mean,
Okay, so the whole story is in Canada. Alright. Because I didn't know the background.
that's what you do, right? If you're a Muslim and you truly believe in it in all your heart. As well, I used to rent. I didn't have a mortgage because I believed in it. Now, there came a point in my life where I started having a little bit of doubt here and there, small doubts. And eventually, I was at 2 years ago, I had some doubts. I was discussing with a friend online, and he mentioned that a lot of the stories in the Quran actually come from Jewish folktales. And I was very surprised about that, like Jewish folktales. I said, no, no, no. You mean it came from the Bible or the Hebrew Torah? And when I looked into it, I found out that actually a lot of the stories are from the Talmud, which is actually the Jewish commentary and the Jewish stories and basically the rabbis, commentary of the traditions. And so it doesn't really have a divine origin. And
Wait. What? How do you go about in decipher that, right? Because if you that is the I'm trying to understand how people understand the Quran, right? Because if you understand it is a revelation, it's not Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam word. It's different if the original belief is, okay, Muhammad come with this and it is from the divine origin, which is either the Bible or the Torah or the Injil. But he suddenly picked from a different source. Then, because if I understand the argument correctly, then now it is in question whether. But the thing is, when if you actually believe it is a revelation from we can discuss what is the proof that this is a revelation. But once you get there, then what is revealed comes directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, any line of stories that come from humans, really relaying the stories, wherever it may come, if it is staying true with the truths that actually happen, it will coincide with the revelation, because this is also truth from the creator that knows exactly what happened way back then, right? So yeah, so if something coincides with a story from someone else that is not even a Christian, a Jewish, etc., it's just whatever. If it's the truth, then it coincides. Then what's the problem, right? Then you wouldn't think that wait, how come this story comes from this kind of people, right? So because the book itself is understood, or Quran itself is understood to be a revelation. It's different if you from the beginning understand that this is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam word. Na'udzubillah ma'azallah, we don't believe that, right? As a Muslim. But if someone believe it as such, then this makes sense. Wait a minute, I thought it's only from, because it's not even from whatever that we have in terms of what is claimed to be Torah or Injil, right? The Quran itself, this is direct revelation. So whatever truths that remains in those two books will coincide, or whatever stories that is having the truths, will coincide. There's no problem there, right?
And I also had a big problem with the story of Dhul Qarnayn. This tribe of how Dhul Qarnayn, he trapped this tribe of people, Yajuj and Majuj, Gog and Magog, behind a giant gate built of copper and iron. And I was wondering, where is this place? How come we can't find it? We have Google Earth and all that, and how come we can't find it? So that was another doubt. And I believe, left Islam for one day. But then I decided, you know what? I'm going to put my doubts aside. I'm Muslim. I want to go to Jannah. I want to believe in Allah. And I became Muslim for one more year. And then last year, so 1 year ago, is when I truly left Islam for good. I was in Ramadan, and I was at a pre-iftar halaqah.
So the how he decide or to stay with Islam and etc. My biggest question is, in the first place, how do you decide Islam is the truth, or it seems fitting, etc. It feels good, blah blah blah, and I want to believe in it? Because if, and this goes to any Muslim out there, right? If you believe Islam is the truth based on that, meaning actually you choose to believe it is the truth because it feels good, it feels right, etc. It's not really like I'm convinced with the argument it points out, etc. Right? Oh, it's clearly is the truth. Because when the Sahaba become convinced, it's because of that. It's not like, because obviously back then it is far from, you know, fitting. I mean, if you choose to become a Muslim, it comes with severe consequences. So the only way someone want to actually put themselves into such consequences is if they only really believe that it is the truth, not just because norm, culture, etc. Right? Unfortunately, not to say unfortunately, Alhamdulillah, fortunately for us, especially those who are born in a Muslim family or country, it is easy for us. But with that comes the big question that I'm concerned about the majority of the Muslim. Have you actually seek through the proof, the what convinced you that this is the truth? Because without that, it's just that it is a religion of convenience, because it's, you know. But anyway, because he didn't also didn't mention why, right, in the first place. So if that is the case, even if a Muslim in Muslim majority country, it's no longer a surprise to me for people that left, because they are never convinced in the beginning to begin with, right?
And the Sheikh was saying, Allah holds up the sky without any pillars. And this brought back all my doubts about, if the Quran is truly from God, the creator of the universe, the one that knows all things, why is he describing the world in a way that, was the 7th century understanding of the world? Like, the sky doesn't have, okay, we know the sky doesn't have any pillars that you can see, but there's no need for pillars. Like, we're just a ball in space. Sky is just emptiness. It's just emptiness of space. So there's no need for any pillars, visible or invisible. And there's many things like that, like the orbit of the sun and the moon. Why Allah describes an orbit of the sun and the moon? Like, we know the orbit of the moon is around the earth. That makes sense. But the orbit of the sun, like, what orbit would that be? I looked into this and I found, well, there is an orbit. It's a 300 million year orbit of the sun around the Milky Way galaxy, which has nothing to do with humanity whatsoever, because it's completely useless. But of course,
what he points is quite interesting, because most people that when they go to that point, they say, wait, because they interpret that as if the sun orbiting the earth. But he actually mentioned that he find that the sun, what is it's orbiting, is not the earth, right? It's the Milky Way, whatever. I'm not an expert in that, but it is the sun also have its own path or something, right? So but his argument is, what does it doesn't serve a purpose or something, right? That is interesting, because he actually point out to nullify the argument of those who says that the Quran in saying that is not true. Anyway, just find that interesting.
So at that time, the Muslims would have thought that this orbit is an orbit of the sun around the earth. And even in Sahih Hadith, Prophet Muhammad, he asked his companions, do you know where the sun goes when at the time of Maghrib? And they said, Allah knows best and his messenger knows best. And he said, it goes beneath the throne of Allah. Now we know the sun is actually still there, and it's actually the earth that's going around the sun. So this one and many other things, they didn't add up to me, that why the creator of the universe is making these mistakes, or describing it in a way that doesn't make any sense today, now based on the new information. And it made me wonder, is it truly Allah the creator, or is it just coming from a man that lived in the 7th century, that believed these things and was...
He is mixing up the Quran and the Hadith, and then make the argument, right? Because there's no mistake there, in the sense that when he said, because the Quran says about the orbiting, the sun orbiting, but he also stated something that point out that it's not a mistake to begin with, right? So there's no mistake in the Quran. You can discuss further about the hadith, right? Because there are hadiths that describe things that fitting to the audience to that day, blah blah blah. So that is a longer discussion, but it doesn't prove anything, you know, to the core belief of Islam to begin with.
Was basically lighting them as he went. And so, you know, the stories in the Quran, like I said, Dhul Qarnayn, you know, where is Gog and Magog, Yajuj and Majuj? There's supposed to be, you know, millions and millions of them stuck behind this dam. We haven't found any giant gate anywhere in the world. I mean, even some of the, I think it was Omar, we went to look for it and they didn't find it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? And so these things, my doubts began to grow and grow. And eventually I got to the point where I said, this can't be from God. I don't believe in this anymore. And because my doubt became more than my certainty. And when I started to look into each one of the claims that of you know, in the Quran, that the Quran is actually from God, like embryology and the mountains and all of these things, including the language, I found they just fell down flat. Like, for example, you know, embryology, you know, all you have to do is look into these things in detail to see how people misrepresent the Quran to be a scientific thing when actually it's not. You know, these stories were meant to be like, you know, kind of to bring you to remember God and to say, look how amazing it is that, you know, the embryo, how it glows. It wasn't meant to be, you know, scientifically accurate. And when you look into it, you find it's actually, the idea is flawed. And same thing with the stories in the Quran, you know, like if they were true stories, why is it that we're finding trouble, you know, verifying these facts? I'll make another video about Dhul Qarnayn in the future. It's a longer topic, but in summary, I just don't believe that there's any possibility that this actually came from a divine being, this book, the Quran. And when you look into it, you find many things that don't add up. And this is why I had to eventually leave Islam, despite all the investment I put into it, you know, emotional investment, and you know, my personality, my friends, you know, everything was Islam to me. So this was a huge loss, you know, losing God. And some people want to know what I believe now. I personally don't believe there's any God, so I'm atheist. But, you know, if someone would ask, well, where did everything come from? I would say I'm still learning, and I don't think we have all the answers. But it is possible there is a force, you know, outside of the universe. I don't know if you wouldn't call it necessarily God. You could call it God, but, you know, a force, a power, a being that made everything into what it is. But this being, from what I can tell, you know, either does not care about us, or does not know about us, is not interested in us, you know, doesn't answer dua, doesn't, like, if you just look at the state of the world today, all the suffering and all the pain, it does not look like there's any God out there that cares for us, that's looking out for us. And
that statement is only valid if you put a certain assumption on God, right? Because I do think that many people assume that if God cared for us, then there would not be any suffering on this planet. Of course, from Islamic perspective, when the very fact, it is clearly stated in the Quran that this whole life is a test. Of course, the test is different from person to person, from, you know, from era to era, etc. Different person in this entire universe is tested differently. Some with extreme wealth, some with extreme pain, etc. And all of those will be rewarded handsomely if they pass the test, and will be punished if they fail miserably. So the Lord, meaning from that perspective, everything makes sense. If you hold on to the assumption that this is the place, right? This is the place that should not be having any suffering if God is real, then you have a certain assumption about the Creator from the beginning that shape, and for whatever reason that leads to it, meaning that becomes a factor or a basis or foundation for you to determine whether God is there or not. So you are starting with an assumption to decide the bigger question, which is weird to me. It's illogical.
in fact, that's what I believe, that if there is a creator, either he doesn't know about us or he doesn't care about us, and he's just letting all these things happen. and which is why I'm an atheist, because I don't believe that there is a God. But if there is a creator out there, I mean, maybe he has no personality. Maybe it's just like a force, a power. You know. Hello, everyone.
Oops. Okay. So yeah, towards the end, I think it kind of answer in terms of how he sees things and why he eventually became an atheist. I think now he's still an atheist, right? It is interesting that the people, I'm not sure actually, right, whether it was an atheist, but the way the discussion have been going on in some of the comments, he seems to be from the Christian side, but among the video that he keep promoting for me to look at is the one who leave Islam and leave religion entirely because he became an atheist. There's no such thing as God, etc., right? So whether he believe in that or is just that anything that can criticize Islam. But anyway, so that is my question as well to my Christian friends. What do you believe about this life from the eyes of God? Right? Because from Islamic perspective, as I mentioned, this life is a test. So anything and everything that we see is part of the test. So from that perspective, without elaborating further, because that will make the video longer, it makes sense, right? It makes sense. Why am I, meaning if you rephrase it in whatever question that you have, why am I being tested in this way, right? Why should you ask that? Because if you already believe that this life is a test, it's just that, for example, you are troubled that you are tested worse than other people perhaps, right? But from Islamic perspective, again, the worst, not the worst, the most severe test always come to those closest to Allah Almighty, right? To God. The prophets are among those who were tested. You know, you can read the stories, right? Being thrown into fire, etc., etc., etc. So they are being tested in that magnitude, right? So, and going through the test, they are granted paradise, of course. Even if we go to the story of the magician in the Pharaoh time, right? And when the Moses, the event, you know, the Musa alayhi salam, and the magician from the side of Pharaoh, right? In the battle, when Allah says to Musa to throw the stick, right? And it become, you know the story. The magician know from that point on, this is not magic. This is something else. They straightway become believer. To the point that immediately they are willing to die for their faith. New faith, right? They just become a believer, and when Pharaoh says some, you know, what are you doing now? They are willing to die for the new faith that they're just, you know, because the truth unfold before their eyes. Nothing, no explanation except that this is from the Creator. We believe in this, and we believe in the Prophet Musa. We are willing to die for it, right? And they did, right? So just to show, right, the type of test in this life. And those magicians are those who are successful, right? Because when the truth appears in the front of their eyes, the proof that the truth is from this guy, the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, they accept it immediately, right? They do not like, no, if we accept, we might face death by this guy Pharaoh that is so, you know, he kills babies before, right? He doesn't have any mercy, right? So might as well please save, etc. No, this meaning those are people that is guaranteed paradise, right? They stick to the truth even if they cost our life, because this life is temporary. This life is temporary. So if we understand that this life is temporary, this life is a test, then there's no question about why is God unfair. This guy becomes rich, this guy suffer, etc. Those questions never arise, because this is a place of test in the temporary world. Right. I'm interested to see how Christian see this life, etc. That's number one. And number two, how they see those who, people of religion that profit from linking wealth and religion, right? Some people build their church with that narrative, and I'm not sure whether they really represent Christianity or not, or or Christian mainly believe that this deviant, using religion for their own benefit. I'm not sure. Just because we are in the topic, I'm interested to my Christian friends to just share your thought on this aspect. But regardless, I have watched one of the video that is requested from one of you. I'm hoping I will be able to watch the others that was suggested. Thank you for watching. See you next time.